Hey there, everybody. Oh, yeah. I got a new dream card from 49 Leaf, and now I'm up to 5 cards from 1949 Leaf, and I realized I've got the 5 big sluggers from that set, at least among active players. Now, I don't have Babe Ruth, but his 49 Leaf card is pretty darn expensive. And I guess some of the other ones I have are expensive too, but, well, they are. But, I probably wouldn't put that much money into the 1949 Leaf Babe Ruth because it's not a playing days card for him. And if I'm going to spend, big money on a Ruth, then I'd be looking to get a playing days card. I think, I don't know. I guess I'm sorting through that. Ruth is not one of the players I collect because when I collect, cards from a player, I like to get several of their cards, several of their playing days cards. And, Ruth is pretty darn cost prohibitive. I wouldn't want to be personally putting that much money into Ruth relative to my budget anyway. So, hey, would love to have some Babe Ruth cards, of course, but I don't really collect his cards just because, at least not his playing days cards, just because of the very impressive Ruth tax. Well, okay, so I've got a new dream card. I want to show that to you. But, I was talking with Dylan the other day at Double D Vintage Baseball Cards, and we were talking about some of these iconic cards that just get, pretty darn expensive. And I realize that's relative to one's budget. But when we're talking about, 62 tops or something like that, at least for my budget, I can be, kind of picky. Now, I'm not going for 8s or 9s. I only have 3 cards from 1962 tops, at least 3 base cards, I believe. And that would be Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, and Stan Musial, 3 of the players that I'm collecting. And so, I'm looking for like a nice looking 4, maybe a 5. So I'm not looking for an 8 or 9. So you could say I'm already in that mid-grade or maybe even low-grade range, depending on how you define low grade. But I can be picky, spend a little more, get one that's centered, looks pretty nice for the grade, and I'm willing to pay a premium. Maybe pay $150 for one that to me is worth that premium instead of paying, let's say, $80 or something. Maybe even pay twice as much possibly, or pay $150 instead of $100 to get one that's got nicer centering, nicer eye appeal. However, when we start talking about these dream cards that cost several $100s or $1,000 or more, for my budget, I really don't want to be necessarily paying $3,000 for a card because it's nicely centered, it looks wonderful, and just so nice for the grade. When maybe I could get a pretty nice one for, say, under $1,000. Because after all, $150 versus $100, that's a $50 difference. But if we're paying $2,000 for a card instead of $1,000, that's a $1,000 difference, and that's a whole lot of enchiladas or cards you can buy. So, kind of the direction I think I'm moving in is being willing to accept a lower grade that doesn't measure up to historically what my own eye appeal standards have been, if it's just this really iconic card and I don't want to be spending, I'd rather spend, say, $1,000 or less rather than, which is a lot of money, rather than spending, say, $2,500 or $3,000. So I think that's the direction I'm moving in, and certainly my new dream card that's a 49 Leafs slugger, certainly I played it that way for that card. Without further ado, let me turn this camera around. Let's get this show continuing on. All right, so I want to show you this card now. This is not one of the 49 Leaf sluggers, obviously, but oh, what a slugger, and I absolutely love this card. There's a reason I'm showing this card, so why am I showing this card? Well, I got this in October of last year, 2024, so I've had it for about 6 months. Man, I absolutely love this card. Absolutely love it. And it's totally transformed my life. Not really, but yeah, I love this card. And here's the deal. To me, this was I thought I was picky. It's not perfectly centered, but it's pretty nicely centered. It's not 100% chip free, but it's, there's no distracting chips for me. The focus, the color. I just think this is a really, really nice card. And so I paid $130 and, maybe for half that amount or maybe for $80. I don't know. For less money, I could have got one for sure. But I was willing to pay, let's say I could have got one that was, decent for $80, but this one just is screaming gorgeous to me for $130. I was willing to pay that $50 premium, let's say, even though percentage-wise, that would be quite a bit, but it's still $50, not $1,000 or $2,000. All right, with that out of the way, prepare to be blown away. Are you ready to be blown away? Now, here's the deal. If you're not blown away, you get double the money back of what you paid me personally for this video. Here we go. All right. So we've got the 4 Leafs that I've had in my collection for some time now. By the way, there is, I guess, a theme because here we have a Woody card, and now we're moving on to the Leafy cards. We've got the 4 Leafs, all big-time sluggers, and then we're going to reveal my new big-time slugger at the end and see the 5 of these in all of their vintage glory. Oh, man. Oh, man. You might guess who that card is. I've already said it's not Babe Ruth. Here's the deal. I got to quit saying here's the deal. I made a note not to say that in video, so, I'm going to try to stop right now. The seller, it was a new listing on eBay, $1,050 or best offer. I made an offer of $875, and actually my offer got accepted pretty quickly within a few minutes, which I was kind of surprised. All right, let's start with Johnny Mize. Man, I love these cards. So we got Johnny Mize in a vintage, I forget my own grading scale. Vintage greatness, extraordinary. You know what? I'm just going to take a minute to look up my own grading scale. I should have been ready. Oh yeah, vintage gem extraordinaire. All right. So in a vintage gem extraordinaire, we got Johnny Mize. Wow. And here's the back. Man, these look so, I'm so stoked to have all these together. And then, oh yeah, in a Vintage Greatness 3, look at that. I've only shown this 812 times, and I've only made maybe less than 200 videos, so. But here it is. Oh, yeah. And then from there, in a pristine 1, woohoo! I've only shown this, probably more times than I've shown the Ted Williams, but look at that, screaming gorgeous. It's got the pinhole. I don't know if Mookie covets stuff, but if he does, he's coveting. He's probably just admiring. And there's the back. So, wow. And then, now I'll tell you why I got this Kiner. Kiner's not one of the players I'm collecting right now, although maybe he should be. In a Too Good to Be 2. They're generally kind of an orange background, but this is more of that kind of ruby red. It's not so common to see them, and this color really appeals to me. And when they come in that kind of ruby red, they have a different shade of blue as well. So this just blew me away with the colors. I think for 49 Leaf, actually, the registration and the colors mean more to me than the centering or the corners. But here you have the Kiner, and I'm super stoked to have it. Notice it's kind of miscut on the back. I think that's probably why they called it a 2. Without that miscut on the back, maybe it gets a 4. I mean, it's pretty off center at the bottom, so I don't know, but maybe it does. But anyway, yeah, absolutely stunning. I just love this card. Okay, so now notice I think those cards look pretty well together, even though I just noticed this, we actually have 4 different grades, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I think they look pretty well together. I think you're going to see on the card I'm about to show that I definitely, compromised a bit because I didn't want to pay like, 2 times this, which would be, I guess, what, $17.50 or 2.5 times this. There's a big difference between paying, say, $2,000 or $2,500 for a card versus $875. Obviously it takes a lot longer to save up for or sell for or however you do it or trade for. Takes more, more value. Free shipping as well. That's pretty cool. No tax because I live in Oregon. All right, I know you're ready to see it. In a pristine one, here it is. Number 1 in the set. Joe DiMaggio. Woohoo! Now, here's the deal. As mentioned, these come in various shades. I don't know that I've hardly seen this. It's almost a checkerboard green. Dylan tells me never look at your cards with a magnifying glass, but I'm going to try to do that now. I guess it's not showing up very well with a magnifying glass, but it's almost a checkerboard green. If you had it in hand, it's almost a checkerboard pattern, but yeah, this background can be, it can be just this neon type green like this. It can be kind of sort of, a dull green. It can be, almost sort of, I think, kind of yellow, greenish, brownish. Anyway, it comes in a lot of more subdued colors, and to me, this one just blew me away. Now, what we have up here is a little splash of ink, I believe, from the printing process, and the roller came across and took that ink, some of that fresh ink, and just, made a nice little yellow dark streak there. None of that bothers me a bit. This was actually pasted in an album, I believe, on the front, which is what made it a 1. You see little bits of paper loss on the corners, as well as little bits of paper stuck to the corners from whatever type of an album or whatever it was stuck into. And then the back wasn't stuck onto anything. You can see a little, I think on the corners where it was eventually removed from the album, put some, torque the corners just a little bit there where you can see a little wrinkling or whatever. But, now why in the world, now Mookie, we need you, you expert detective. Why would somebody, paste the front of their card into an album? Well, maybe this was way back a long time ago, and maybe they, were getting these out of packs, and so they would, paste. Maybe they had 2 Joe D's, and they pasted one so you could see the front, and they pasted the other way so you could see the back when you open the album. That's all I can figure, but man. To me, the registration, is solid for sure. And this color just blows me away. Look at that. Oh, look at that. Just not just the green, but the color everywhere to me is just, it's blowing me away. All right, let's see them all together. So yeah, you can, oh man, look at that. Wow. You can see that I gave some on condition. This, I think, compared to the other 4, has got that little bit of paper loss and paper as from on this card, a little bit of paper loss maybe, as well as some paper remnants from whatever this card was stuck on. The front of this card was stuck on the corners. Of course, it's off center quite a bit to the left. That's obvious looking at it. So you can see I gave a little bit on condition, but I'm pretty stoked about not having to spend, $2,000, $2,500. And, I guess this is just my way of saying I think I might just be giving somewhat more on condition, which of course I know is my choice when it comes to these monster cards, because I just didn't want to pay 2 or 2.5 or 3 times as much because I'd like to get more of these cards. And one of, what do I mean by more of these cards? More of the cards that are budget busters for me, that are tough, on the budget. I'd like to get more of them. And to be open about it, I'd like to do it. It's going to take time, of course, but sooner rather than later because, these could go up in value. There's no guarantees. They could also go down in value, but the number of people who are, enthused about collecting vintage cards right now is maybe at an all-time high. And there's a lot of pressure on, key iconic cards like this. So I'd like to get one now before it potentially goes up in value by, however much, 50%, 100%, you never know. And then here's the other thing. If time goes on and maybe values stay the same for a long time, I always have the option of maybe buying one that's a higher grade or better centered or whatever the case may be. And then, moving this one or selling this one or trading this one to help fund that purchase of an upgrade. But here's the deal. When I buy a card, pretty much my cardinal rule is I buy it with the idea that, I don't generally buy with the thought that I might upgrade at some point, but I buy it with the idea that even if I never upgrade it, I'm super stoked about the one I have. Like if there was something about this card that really bugged me, then I wouldn't just hang on to a card that really bugs me. I would, as a placeholder, especially if it has a lot of value. If it didn't have much value, maybe, but if it has a lot of value, no, I'd move it to get something that I enjoy looking at, that I love looking at. So I'm stoked about this one. So, could it be upgraded someday? Maybe. It's a possibility, but it's not necessary by any means. This thing to me is just absolutely glorious. And I'm blown away looking at the 5 of these leaf sluggers. But I guess I better end this video at some point. I could turn it around and have you look at me, but I feel like these leaf sluggers need to be, I can't take my eyes off them. So we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for listening to my thoughts. Thank you for sharing in my joy. Would love to hear your comments below. I hope you had a wonderful and peaceful time in the vintage sanctuary. Take care, my friends. Woohoo!